The scariest part about buying a new house isn't the mortgage. It's realizing you don't really know who lives next door. The friendly neighbor, the quiet one who keeps to themselves, the person who seems normal enough. Tonight, you'll hear 3 true stories from people who learned the hard way that proximity doesn't mean safety. These are real homes, real neighbors, and real consequences that started with a simple hello. I bought my first house when I was 26, a small ranch house in a quiet subdivision outside Minneapolis. Most of my neighbors were older, empty nesters, retirees. I worked nights as an ER nurse, so I kept weird hours. The house next door had been empty since I moved in. According to my neighbor across the street, the previous owner had died and the family was sorting out the estate. About 2 months after I moved in, someone finally bought it. I saw the moving truck one Saturday morning when I got home from my shift. I was too tired to introduce myself, so I just went inside and crashed. I didn't meet my new neighbor for another week. Her name was Patricia. She looked to be in her 60s, gray hair pulled back in a bun, soft-spoken, and very polite. She said she'd just moved from Arizona to be closer to her daughter. She seemed lonely. She'd wave every time she saw me. Sometimes she'd be sitting on her porch when I left for work, and she'd ask how my shift went. Nice lady, reminded me of my grandmother. After a few weeks, I started noticing she'd always be outside when I left for work. Always, even if it was raining or cold. Just sitting on her porch, watching. One night I left early for my shift, and she wasn't there. I thought maybe she'd finally broken the routine. But when I got to my car, I saw her curtains move. She was watching from inside. It was weird, but not threatening. Just lonely old lady behavior. I felt bad for her. Then, one morning when I got home, she was waiting by my car. She looked upset. "Can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked. I was exhausted, but I said sure. She started crying. Said her daughter hadn't called in 3 days and wasn't answering texts. Said she was worried something had happened. I told her I was sorry and that I was sure everything was fine. I offered to help her call local hospitals if she wanted. She thanked me and said no, she'd keep trying. The next day, same thing. Waiting by my car when I got home, crying. Still hadn't heard from her daughter. I asked if she'd filed a missing person report. She said the police told her it hadn't been long enough yet. She asked if I could drive to her daughter's apartment to check on her. I really didn't want to. I barely knew this woman. But she seemed genuinely distressed, so I agreed. We drove to an apartment complex about 30 minutes away. She said her daughter lived in Unit 2B. We went up and knocked. No answer. Patricia started crying harder. I suggested we ask the building manager to do a wellness check. She said she'd already tried and they wouldn't without police involvement. I told her we should call the police then. She got quiet and said she didn't want to make a scene if her daughter was just busy. The whole thing felt off, but I drove her home. That evening before my shift, she knocked on my door. She had a plate of cookies, said she wanted to thank me for being so kind. She apologized for being a burden. I told her it was fine. The cookies were good, chocolate chip, homemade. About an hour after my shift that night, I started feeling weird. Dizzy, nauseous. I thought maybe I was getting sick. Then my vision started blurring. I told my supervisor I needed to go home. She said I looked terrible and insisted on calling me an Uber. I was too out of it to argue. I got home and threw up immediately. Then I passed out on my couch. I woke up to someone touching my arm. Patricia was in my house, standing over me. I jumped up, head pounding, and yelled at her to get out. She smiled. "You weren't answering your door. I got worried." "How did you get in?" "Your spare key under the mat. I saw you use it once when you locked yourself out." My heart was racing. "You need to leave, now." "Are you feeling better? You looked so sick when you left last night." How did she know that? I left through my garage. She couldn't have seen me. "Get out of my house." She left, but the smile never dropped. I changed every lock, changed the hiding spot for my spare key. I felt violated. The next morning, I found a note slipped under my door. "I'm sorry if I scared you. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. You've been so kind to me, Patricia." I decided to talk to my neighbor across the street, Helen. She was retired and seemed to know everyone. I asked her what she knew about Patricia. Helen's face changed. "Why?" I told her about the cookies, waking up sick, finding Patricia in my house. Helen went pale. She did the same thing to the previous owner. "What do you mean?" "The woman who lived in your house before you, Barbara. She died in her sleep, a heart attack, they said. But she was only 58 and healthy. Patricia had just moved in a few months before it happened." "Wait, Patricia told me the previous owner of her house died." "No, Patricia's house was empty. She bought it in cash. Barbara's daughter sold your house after Barbara died and couldn't bear to keep it." My stomach dropped. Helen continued. "Barbara and Patricia became friends. Patricia would bring her food all the time. Then Barbara got sick, really sick. Doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong. Then she died." "Did anyone suspect?" "Patricia was questioned, but nothing came of it. No proof. The autopsy was inconclusive. I went to the police that afternoon and told them everything. They said they'd look into it, but couldn't do much without evidence. I sent the leftover cookies to a private lab for testing. It cost me $300. Results came back 2 weeks later. Small amounts of antifreeze. Not enough to kill me from one batch, but enough to make me sick, if I'd kept eating them. I gave the results to the police. They got a warrant for Patricia's house. They found bottles of antifreeze in her garage. They also found photos of me, dozens of them, leaving for work, coming home, in my backyard, through my windows. And they found a journal, pages and pages about me, my schedule, what I wore, who visited me, plans for what she'd do when we were closer. The last entry was dated the day she'd given me the cookies. She accepted my gift. Soon she'll be too weak to leave. Then she'll really need me. They arrested her that day. It turns out her daughter didn't exist. The apartment complex had no record of anyone by that name. Patricia had done this before, not just to Barbara. They found records of at least 3 other women in different states over the past 15 years. Women who lived alone. Women Patricia had befriended. Women who died of mysterious illnesses. The prosecutor said Patricia had a psychological condition, a need to be needed, to be a caretaker. But she couldn't just help people who were already sick. She had to make them sick first. I moved 6 months later. Couldn't stay in that house knowing she'd been in it, going through my things, watching me sleep. The thing that haunts me the most isn't what she did. It's how easily I let her in. She played the lonely old lady perfectly. I wanted to help her, and she used that against me. She's in prison now, awaiting trial. Her lawyer's claiming diminished capacity. I hope she never gets out. Because I know if she does, she'll find another woman living alone. Another person who wants to help. Another victim who won't realize what's happening until it's too late. I bought my house in March, first-time homeowner, 28 years old, saved up for 3 years to afford the down payment. It was a small place in a working-class neighborhood outside Phoenix. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. The house to my right was a rental. A guy lived there, maybe early 30s, drove a lifted pickup truck with a thin blue line sticker. I'd see him coming and going, but we never talked. About 2 weeks after I moved in, I was in my garage unpacking boxes when he walked over. His name was Derek. He was friendly enough, asked where I worked, how I liked the neighborhood, normal neighbor stuff. Then he said, "Just so you know, I have friends over pretty regularly. We get loud sometimes, so if it ever bothers you, just shoot me a text." I appreciated the heads up and gave him my number. The first party was that Friday. Music started around 8 p.m. By 10 p.m., it was loud enough that I could feel the bass through my walls. I texted Derek asking if he could turn it down a bit. He responded, "Yeah, man, my bad. We'll keep it down." The music got quieter for maybe 20 minutes, then went right back up. I let it go. It was a Friday night, people party. But then it happened again the next Friday, and the Friday after that. Always the same. Loud music, trucks pulling in and out all night, people yelling in the driveway. On the fourth Friday, I texted him again around 11 p.m. This time he didn't respond. The party went until 3 a.m. Saturday morning, I went over and knocked. Derek answered, looking hungover. "Hey man, I texted you last night about the noise." "Yeah, I saw it. We're allowed to have people over." "I know, but it's every weekend, and it goes past midnight every time. I work early on Saturdays." "It's not even that loud." "I can hear every word of every song through my walls." He stared at me for a second. "You should have thought about that before you bought a house next to a rental." "I'm just asking that you keep it down after 11. That's reasonable." "I pay rent here. I'll do what I want." He shut the door. The next Friday, the party was even louder. I called the non-emergency police line at midnight. They said they'd send someone. A cop showed up around 12:45, knocked on Derek's door. I watched from my window. They talked for maybe 2 minutes, then the cop left. The music turned off. I thought that would be the end of it. Sunday morning, I walked out to get my mail. All 4 of my tires were slashed. I called the police. They came out, took a report, asked if I had any idea who did it. I told them about the noise complaint and Derek. They went over and talked to him. He denied it, said he was asleep all night. No proof either way. It cost me $800 to replace the tires. I installed a camera above my garage, pointed it at my driveway and Derek's property. The following Friday, no party. I thought maybe he'd backed off. Then, Saturday night around 2 a.m., I woke up to someone pounding on my door. I looked through the peephole. It was Derek. He was yelling something I couldn't make out. I didn't open the door. I told him through the door to leave or I'd call the cops. "You got me in trouble!" he screamed. "My landlord said one more complaint and I'm out." "That's not my problem. Stop having parties at 2 a.m. "This is bullshit. You moved here and started telling me what to do." He kicked my door hard enough that I heard the frame crack. Then he walked away. I called the police, showed them the camera footage of him kicking my door. They went to his house, but he didn't answer. They left him a citation. 2 days later, I came home from work to find someone had spray painted snitch across my garage door in red paint. My camera had been spray painted over too. Couldn't see anything. I filed another report. Same response. They'd look into it. I bought 2 more cameras and hid them better. That weekend, Derek had another party, louder than ever. I didn't call the cops, I just stayed inside with earplugs in. Around 1 a.m., I heard glass breaking. I looked out my window and saw 3 guys in Derek's driveway throwing beer bottles at my house. One of them hit my front window and cracked it. I called 911 this time. Told them people were vandalizing my property right now. Police arrived within 10 minutes. By the time they got there, everyone had gone inside Derek's house. The officers knocked, no answer. They knocked again. Finally, Derek opened the door, acting confused. Said he didn't know anything about the bottles. Said his guests had all left. The cops couldn't do anything without proof of who threw them. But I had it on camera. I showed them the footage the next day. Clear shots of faces, license plates, everything. They said they'd follow up. Nothing happened. I contacted a lawyer. He said I could pursue a restraining order, but it would be expensive and hard to enforce. Suggested I just move. I'd owned the house for 3 months. I started looking for a new place, put the house up for sale. I had to disclose the vandalism, which tanked the value. But before I could close on anything, it got worse. One night around 10 p.m., I was in my living room when I heard my back gate open. I pulled up the camera feed on my phone. Derek was in my backyard. He had a baseball bat. I grabbed my phone and locked myself in my bedroom, called 911, told them someone was in my yard with a weapon. I heard my back sliding glass door shatter. The 911 operator told me to stay on the line. Police were 3 minutes away. I heard footsteps inside my house. Then I heard Derek yelling, "Come out here and talk to me like a man!" I didn't respond, just stayed in my room with the door locked. "You ruined everything! I'm getting evicted because of you!" More crashing sounds. He was destroying my living room. Then I heard sirens. Derek ran. I heard my front door open and his footsteps outside. The police tackled him in my driveway. He fought them, screaming the whole time. It took 3 officers to get him in cuffs. They arrested him for burglary, vandalism, assault with a deadly weapon, and found meth in his pocket, so that was another charge. His truck was full of stolen goods and equipment from various job sites. It turned out he'd been fired from his construction job 2 weeks earlier and had been stealing to pay rent. The eviction notice I'd supposedly caused? It was for non-payment, not complaints. None of this had anything to do with me. I was just a convenient target. The prosecutor said Derek would do time. The evidence was overwhelming. Camera footage, 911 call, the bat, the meth. But my house was destroyed. Every window broken, spray paint on 3 walls, my TV smashed, furniture broken. Insurance covered most of it, but I still had to pay the deductible, and I had to live somewhere else while repairs were done. I sold the house 2 months later at a $15,000 loss. Now I rent an apartment on the 3rd floor. No neighbors on either side, just above and below, and the building has quiet hours enforced by management. I'll probably never buy another house. The idea of being stuck next to someone who wants to hurt you with no way out except selling at a loss? I can't do that again. My family moved to Austin last year. I'm 34, married with 2 kids, twin boys aged 7. My wife Rachel works in healthcare, and I do software consulting from home. The neighborhood was perfect. New construction, families with kids, safe streets, exactly what we wanted. Our neighbors to the left were a couple in their late 20s, Adrian and Cassie, no kids. They were polite when we met them, friendly enough, but not overly social. I noticed pretty quick they got a lot of packages. Not like regular Amazon shipments, professional equipment. I saw lighting gear, camera boxes, sound equipment, big shipments every few days. I figured they were content creators or something. Everyone's a YouTuber these days. One afternoon, I was working in my home office when I heard voices through the wall. Our houses are close together and the walls aren't that great. At first, I thought they were having a conversation, but something was off. The voices kept changing. One minute it was Adrian talking, then suddenly it was a woman with an accent, then a man with a deep voice, then a child. I realized they were playing recordings. I didn't think much of it. Maybe they were editing videos or doing voiceover work. But it kept happening. Different voices, different accents, different ages. Sometimes I'd hear the same conversation repeated over and over, like they were rehearsing. Rachel mentioned it too. She said she'd heard what sounded like an elderly woman crying through the bathroom wall one morning, then laughing, then crying again. They must be making some kind of podcast or something, she said. One Saturday afternoon, our boys were playing in the backyard when they came running inside. "Dad, there's a really old lady at the neighbor's door," my son Tyler said. I looked out the window. There was a woman, probably in her 70s, standing at Adrian and Cassie's door. She was crying and yelling. "You said you loved me. You said you needed help." Adrian came outside and tried to calm her down. After a few minutes, she left, got in her car and drove away, still crying. I asked Rachel if she'd seen it. She had. "That was weird, right?" she said. "Very." 2 days later, it happened again. Different person this time. A man in his 50s pounding on their door, demanding to see Michael. Adrian came out and said there was no Michael at this address. The man insisted, said he'd been sending money to Michael for months, that Michael needed help with medical bills. Adrian said the man had been scammed and should call the police. The man left, looking devastated. That night, Rachel and I talked about it. 2 people in 1 week, both talking about sending money, she said. "You think they're running scams?" "I don't know, but it's suspicious." The next morning I was in my office when I heard voices again. But this time, I really listened. It was Adrian's voice, but he was saying things in different tones, different accents, playing different characters. "Please, I need your help. My daughter's sick and I can't afford the treatment." Then in a different voice, "I'm so lonely. You're the only person who understands me." Then in yet another voice, "I'm stuck overseas and my wallet was stolen. Can you wire me money just until I get home?" My stomach dropped. I started recording it on my phone. Over the next week, I recorded at least a dozen different scripts, all of them designed to manipulate people into sending money. Sick relatives, stranded travelers, lonely people looking for connection. I also started paying attention to their routine. Cassie left for what looked like a normal job every morning, but Adrian was always home. And those packages kept coming. More equipment, more gear. One afternoon, a delivery truck dropped off a large box. The label said AI voice synthesis system. That's when it clicked. They weren't just running scams. They were using AI to clone voices. That's why I heard so many different people. They were generating fake voices to match fake profiles. I did some research. Turns out AI romance scams and financial scams are huge right now. People fake profiles, use AI-generated photos and voices, build emotional connections with vulnerable people, then ask for money. And Adrian and Cassie were running one of these operations out of their house. I called the FBI tip line, explained everything. The equipment, the voices, the victims showing up, the AI voice system. They said they'd look into it. 3 weeks later, nothing had happened. More victims showed up. An elderly man, a middle-aged woman. All of them crying, confused, asking for their money back. I called the tip line again. They said investigations take time. Then, one night, things escalated. Around 11 p.m., someone started pounding on Adrian and Cassie's door. I looked out the window and saw a man with a baseball bat.
"Come out here! I want my money back!"
Adrian didn't come out. The man started hitting their mailbox with the bat, then moved to their car, smashed the windshield. I called 911. The police arrived within minutes and arrested the guy. But this time, they didn't just leave. They went inside Adrian and Cassie's house. They were in there for over an hour. Then more police arrived. Detectives, people in suits. Adrian and Cassie were brought out in handcuffs. Turns out I wasn't the only one who'd reported them. Multiple people had filed complaints with the FBI. They'd been running a massive operation, over 200 active relationships with victims across the country. They used AI to generate photos, voices, even video calls. They'd target lonely or vulnerable people on dating sites and social media, build trust over weeks or months, then ask for money. Medical emergencies, travel problems, business investments, whatever story would work. They'd stolen over $3 million. The FBI seized everything. Computers, phones, all that equipment. Found spreadsheets tracking victims, scripts for different scenarios, AI-generated voice profiles. Adrian and Cassie both got federal charges. Wire fraud, conspiracy, identity theft. They're facing 20 years. The house sat empty for 2 months before the bank foreclosed. It's on the market now. But our neighborhood group chat exploded after the arrest. It turns out several other people had noticed strange things but never said anything. The constant packages, the weird voices, people showing up crying. Everyone had just minded their own business. Rachel and I talked to our boys about it, explained in age-appropriate terms that some people use technology to trick others, that if something seems wrong, it's okay to tell someone. Tyler asked if the old lady who was crying got her money back. I didn't know. Probably not. The thing that bothers me most is how professional it was. It wasn't some amateur operation. They had a whole system. Scripts, AI tools, fake identities. And they lived next door to us with 2 young kids playing in the yard. Just going about their lives while destroying other people's. I still hear those AI voices sometimes when I'm working. The sick daughter, the stranded traveler, the lonely widow. All of it fake. All of it designed to exploit people at their most vulnerable. I used to think romance scams were obvious, that people who fell for them were naive. Now I know better. When someone uses AI to fake a voice, a face, a personality, when they spend months building trust, it's not about being naive. It's about predators getting more sophisticated. And they're living right next door.